So the screen is visible to the students.
जी सर। हाँ जी।
Yes, sir.
So in today's lecture, we will mainly discuss about the atomic mass unit. What is atomic mass unit? So in 1960s, the General Conference on Weights and Measures, how we can weigh or measure the quantities about electrons, protons, neutrons. This will be decided. First of all, it is introduced as a unified mass unit, and which is also known as atomic mass unit, or simply it can be called as AMU, means atomic mass unit. How we can weigh or measure these small particles like electrons, protons, neutrons, atoms, nuclei, all these things. So all these things can be measured in the form of atomic mass unit. One atomic mass unit is equal to 1/12 of the mass of a neutral carbon atom. So this is the main definition. One atomic mass unit is always equal to 1/12 of the mass of a neutral carbon atom. We know that the atomic number of carbon is 6 and its mass number is 12. So mass number of a carbon is 12. That's why we are considering here the 1/12 of the mass of neutral carbon atom. And also we know that 1 mole of a substance is that amount in which mass in grams is equal to its atomic weight. And 1 mole of substance contains the number of atoms which are always equal to a constant number, which is also called a Avogadro number, and its value is 6.0225 into 10 raised to power 23, which is always constant. These are the number of atoms present in 1 mole of a substance. So 1 mole of carbon means 12 gram of atomic carbon contains n atoms. N is Avogadro number. So we can easily calculate the mass of one carbon atom. So from the definition, it is 1/12 of the mass of the neutral carbon. So by definition, it is 1/12 into the 12 gram of carbon divided by n. N means the total number of atoms present in 1 mole of a gas. If we have a 1 mole of carbon means 12 gram of atomic carbon is there, means 12 gram of carbon divided by the total capital N, which is the Avogadro number. So 12 and 12 will cancel out each other and we are left with 1 AMU. 1 AMU means now 1 atomic mass unit is equal to 1/12 into 12 gram by capital N. And if we can put the values of capital N is 6.0225 into 10 raised to power 23. And we are left with 1.66 into 10 raised to power 24 gram. So overall, we conclude that one atomic mass unit is always equal to 1.66 into 10 raised to power minus 27 kilogram. So this is all about 1 AMU or 1 atomic mass unit. So 1 atomic mass unit is always equal to 1.66 into 10 raised to power minus 27 kilogram. Next topic is unit of energy. What are the units of energy? Gross energy of electron, energy of a proton, all these things are there. The unit in which nuclear energy is expressed as electron volt. Nuclear energy is always expressed in electron volt. Small e, capital B. Small e is the charge on a particle and V is the potential. The amount of energy acquired by an electron when accelerated through a potential difference of 1 volt is called an electron volt. 1 electron volt is always equal to the potential difference of 1 volt on the particle. amount of energy acquired by an electron when acceleration, when any electron, proton, or any particle is there, that will be accelerated through a potential difference of 1 volt. If we apply a potential difference of 1 volt, and that is called a electron volt. So we can also calculate 1 electron volt or 1 ev as this is equal to the magnitude of the charge on the electron multiplied by the volt. So 1 volt is the potential difference, and magnitude of the charge on the electron is always 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 19 coulomb. So multiply these two things, 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 19 coulomb into 1 volt. So this is equal to 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 19 joules. So we can calculate here that 1 electron volt is always equal to 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 19 joules. So if the energy is very large, then the energy is also calculated in mega electron volts, that is MeV. So 1 MeV is always equal to 10 raised to power 6 electron volts. So if the energy is large, then we can calculate that energy in mega electron volts. Next thing is, what is the relation between AMU, means atomic mass unit, and the energy? Now we can find out the relation between them. According to the Einstein's equation of mass and energy, which is E is equal to mc square. M is the mass of the particle, that is always measured in AMU, atomic mass unit, and this is always equal to 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 27 kilogram. And small c is the velocity of light in vacuum or in air, that is always equal to 2.99 into 10 raised to power 8 meter per second. So E is equal to mc square. Put the values of m and c square, and we can find out there its value is 1.484 in 10 raised to power minus 10 joules. And we also know that 1 joule is equal to 1 by 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 19 electron volt. So 1.484 into 10 raised to power minus 10 joules is equal to, divide this term with 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 19, and we can find out the energy in terms of electron volt, and that energy is equal to 931 into 10 raised to power 6 electron volt, and that can be also converted into mega electron volt, which is equal to 931 mega electron volt will be the energy of the particle. So this is the simple relation. So the energy corresponding to 1 AMU, means atomic mass unit, is always equal to 931 mega electron volt. To solve any numerical problem, we can always use this value. For 1 atomic mass unit is always equal to 931 mega electron volt will be the energy. So next is numerical. Calculate the energy equivalence of 1 gram in kilowatt hour. 1 gram in kilowatt, we can find out the energy in kilowatt hour. So mass here m is 1 gram. 1 gram is, it is equal to 10 raised to power minus 3 kilogram. And c value is again the velocity of light is 3 into 10 raised to power 8 meter per second. And Einstein's mass energy relation is equal to mc square, 10 raised to power minus 3 into 9 into 10 raised to power 16, which is c square now. So by calculation we can find out there 9 into 10 raised to power 13 joules of energy is there. Now we can convert this energy of joules into kilowatt hour. So to calculate in kilowatt hour, 1 kilowatt hour is always equal to 3.6 into 10 raised to power 6 joules. So energy in the joules will be converted into kilowatt hour by dividing the term with 3.6 into 10 raised to power 6. And the final result is 2.5 into 10 raised to power 7 is the energy in kilowatt hour. So this is the calculation of energy in terms of kilowatt hour. Next topic is a very important topic about nuclear angular momentum. Nuclear angular momentum. A nucleus, we know that is a consists of protons and neutrons. Protons and neutrons are present inside the nucleus. And it is found that the neutrons and protons possesses an intrinsic angular momentum of magnitude half h cross, that is 1 by 2 h cross, just like an electron. This is the angular momentum of the magnitude, always equal to 1 by 2 h cross, just like an electron. So the intrinsic angular momentum is also termed as spin. Spin of the intrinsic angular momentum is also denoted as the spin of that particle. So each of the nucleon like proton and neutron possesses an angular momentum, capital I. Capital I is the sum of both the orbital angular momentum. Orbital angular momentum is due to the motion of the nucleus about the center of the nucleus. And the second thing is the intrinsic spin angular momentum due to spin of the proton and neutron. So the total angular momentum I is always equal to the sum of the orbital angular momentum and the spin angular momentum. And spin angular momentum for a particle like nucleon is always 1 by 2 h cross for a nucleon. So according to the quantum mechanics, orbital angular momentum of a nucleus is an integral multiple of h cross. Orbital angular momentum, yes.
सर एच क्रॉस का मीनिंग क्या करते हैं?
H cross is also equal to the h, the Planck's constant. Planck's constant is h, and h cross is h by 2 pi, which is related to the Planck's constant. Constant term is.
Okay.
So according to quantum mechanics, orbital angular momentum of a nucleus is an integral multiple of h cross, and the spin angular momentum is 1 by 2 h cross. So angular momentum of a nucleus in terms of quantum mechanics is written as L plus S or L minus S. Means the sum of the orbital plus spin and the subtraction of orbital and spin depending on its orientation. What is the orientation relative to the axis of motion? Where L is angular momentum and S is the spin angular momentum. So we can use plus or minus sign depends upon their orientations. So if we want to find out the total angular momentum of the nucleus, total angular momentum is I, which is the sum of the orbital angular momentum, which is written as summation of L, and summation of S is written as the sum of the spin angular momentum, which is written as plus or minus sign depends upon the spin orientations of the particles. According we use plus or minus sign. So summation of L is written as capital L and summation of S is written as capital S. So capital L is the total orbital angular momentum of the nucleus, and capital S is the total spin angular momentum of the nucleus. So the total angular momentum of a nucleus is called the nuclear spin. So next we can find out or compare what will be the total angular momentum depends on the number of particles or number of charged particles present in a nucleus. So we can find out there in a nuclei have a low spin in their ground state as compared to the spin in the excited state. They have a very low spin in the ground state as compared to the excited state. So spin of the excited state differ from the spin of the ground state by an integral multiple of h cross only. And if even nuclei means the nuclei having even number of protons and even number of neutrons present in a single atom. Suppose we are taking a carbon atom. in which even number of protons and even number of neutrons are present. Sometimes even number of protons and odd number of neutrons are also present. And in another situation, odd number of protons and even number of neutrons are present. And in the fourth situation, both the odd number of protons and odd number of neutrons are present. So there are four conditions are there. First of all, for even. Even means even number of protons and even number of neutrons are present. So all the protons and neutrons should pair off so as to cancel out one another's spin and angular momentum. Thus, even nuclei should always possess a zero nuclear angular momentum. Even nuclei always possess a zero nuclear angular momentum because they can cancel out each other's spin and orbital angular momentum. Next, spin of the helium 2He4. We are taking the beryllium as an example, carbon, helium, barium, carbon, oxygen. All these are the examples of a zero angular momentum because they are even nuclei. You can see here 2He4, 4Be8, 6C12. All these are even nuclei. So all these even nuclei have always a zero angular momentum. Next one, the condition is even odd. Even odd means when nuclei having even number of protons and odd number of neutrons are there. Even number of protons and odd number of neutrons. And also the odd even is also there. Odd even nuclei means nuclei having odd number of protons and even number of neutrons. So examples for this is 4Be9, C6 and 13. These are the isotopes of carbon and barium. And isotope of oxygen is 8O17. These are the also isotope of oxygen in which the total mass number is 17 here. So we can easily find out that one number is even and one number is odd. Like in oxygen, 8 is even and 17 is an odd number, 8 is an even number. So we can conclude here that one particle like proton is positive or even, and another one, the neutron, is odd. One proton is odd or even, and neutron is even. On in the another case, neutron, if neutron is even, proton is odd. So situation is like even odd or odd even. So all in these particles, the half integral spin of the single extra nucleon should be combined with the integral angular momentum of the rest of the nucleus. So for a half integral, total angular momentum is always there. That is 1 by 2 h cross. So for even odd and odd even, all these combinations have a total angular momentum is always half h cross because only a single proton or a single neutron is left which does not pair with its neighboring proton with the neutron. Only a single proton or maybe a neutron will be left, and that proton or neutron have only a spin that is 1 by 2 h cross. So the total angular momentum which is left is 1 by 2 h cross for even odd and odd even case. Last one case is the fourth case of odd odd, when odd nuclei are present. So odd means both the protons and neutrons are present in odd situation. Protons are in odd number and neutrons are also in odd number. So these type of nuclei have an extra neutron and an extra proton. Both things are there. So half integral spin is on proton and half integral spin is on neutron. So half can combine with each other. Half plus half is equal to 1 h cross. So 1 h cross is means the only a integral spin is present. Total angular momentum is h cross for all these particles which having a odd nuclei. So overall, we can conclude here that all even nuclei have a spin, that is capital I is always equal to 0, whereas for all odd nuclei have an integral spin, that is h cross. And on the other hand, with all the nuclei having odd even or even odd, all these combinations have a half integral spin lying 1 by 2 h cross, 3 by 2 h cross, 5 by 2 h cross, 7 by 2 h cross, 9 by 2 h cross. All these things are possible for odd even and even odd nuclei. So the next topic is the nuclear magnetic dipole moment. Nuclear magnetic dipole moment. So for this, we are considering a charged particle moves in a closed path. So when a charged particle is moved in a closed path, it produces a magnetic field. So the spin angular momentum of the proton and orbital angular momentum of the protons within a nucleus always produces a magnetic field. So maybe we can consider a proton or a neutron for this. So the spin of these particles always produces a magnetic field, which can be easily described in terms of the resultant magnetic dipole moment located at the center of the nucleus. So if we consider a particle, say proton having a charge E on it, moves around a force center with the frequency of nu, and the equivalent current is always equal to the charge into the frequency. Charge is E on the proton, and that charge is moving with the frequency nu. E into nu is there, and nu the frequency is always equal to 1 by t. T is the time period, so we can put 1 by t instead of nu. So the current is E divided by capital T. So a current loop possesses a magnetic moment called orbital magnetic dipole moment, denoted by mu L. Mu L means the orbital dipole moment, always considered as mu L vector. So which can be calculated as the current passed through the loop multiplied by the area of the loop. Here we can see in a diagram, current is moving in a circular loop with a radius of small r, and r cap is the radius vector and its direction is always perpendicular to that surface, and I current is moving in a circular loop. So the magnetic dipole moment is always equal to the current passed into the area of the loop into the permeability of the free space present here. So mu naught be the permeability of a free space. Suppose current I is moving in this circular loop, and a capital A will be the area of this loop. So A vector will be the area vector here. Mu naught, now put the value of I, which is E by capital T, and area vector is pi r square, because r is the radius of that loop. So the area is pi r square, and its direction is r cap. R cap is the direction of the area vector, which is always perpendicular to the surface. So the whole area vector is pi r square r cap. Here r cap denotes the direction of the area vector. So r radius of the loop and r vector is a unit vector along the direction perpendicular to the plane of the loop. Now next thing is capital T. What is capital T here? We know that the time is always equal to distance divided by the speed. So how much distance will be covered by a charged particle in completing one circle? That distance is equal to the circumference of that circle. So the circumference of that circle is 2 pi r, and suppose the speed or the velocity of that particle is v. So capital T is 2 pi r divided by v. Now we can put the values of that capital T in the above expression. We are given by mu L vector is equal to mu naught E into V by 2 pi r multiplied by pi r square r cut, that is the area vector. So the resultant is here r and r cancel out each other, mu naught EV r by 2 into r cap. Or we can also say that if we can multiply it by mv and also divide by mp. What is mp here? mp is the mass of the proton. So we can multiply and divide by mp. So why we can use here mp? Because mp means the mass of the proton into velocity into the radius vector is always equal to capital L, that is the angular momentum of the proton. So we can easily written it as a angular momentum of the proton. So if we put the value of capital L is equal to mPv into r, so we are left with the orbital angular momentum mu L vector is equal to mu naught E by 2 mp capital L into r cap, or in the vector notation L into r cap is written as L vector. So in the vector notation it can be written as mu L vector is equal to mu naught E by 2 mp L vector. So we can also put here a GL for the orbital gyromagnetic ratio. For orbital gyromagnetic ratio, GL is always equal to 1. And also there is a spin gyromagnetic ratio is also there, which is GS. And so for mu naught, we can put the values for mu LGL, and for mu S, if we want to find out the spin magnetic dipole moment. Spin magnetic dipole moment is mu S, mu L is the orbital magnetic dipole moment. For orbital magnetic dipole moment, it is GL, and for the spin magnetic dipole moment, it is GS. And GL value is always 1 for orbital gyromagnetic ratio, and GS is for protons and neutrons have a different values. For protons, its value is positive 5.5, and for the neutron, its value is negative 3.8. So for according to the given conditions on whether the protons and neutrons are there, we can put the value of GS. So if we want to find out the total magnetic dipole moment of is the sum of the orbital angular momentum mu L vector plus the spin angular magnetic dipole moment mu S vector. So we can sum up equation number 2 and equation number 3 to find out the total magnetic dipole moment. So total magnetic dipole moment is the orbital magnetic dipole moment plus the spin magnetic dipole moment, mu L vector plus mu S vector. So if we can sum up this and we can calculate it very easily, it is G into E by 2 mp into L, capital L plus capital S. Capital L the total orbital angular momentum, capital S is the total spin angular momentum. That is always equal to capital I, the total angular momentum. Capital I, total angular momentum, which is sum of the orbital angular momentum plus S, the sum of spin angular momentum. And G value is always denoted in terms of GL and GS by this expression. So the resultant value is the total magnetic dipole moment mu vector is always equal to G into E by 2 mp into I vector. We can sum up L vector plus S vector as I vector here. So this is the final relation for the total magnetic dipole moment. And also we can write down this relation for the magnetic dipole moment in terms of the nuclear magnetone, which is defined as mu n. Mu n is always equal to E by H cross by 2mp. So its value is can be calculated by putting the values of this charge, H constant and mass of the proton, and its value is 3.152 to 10 is to power minus 8 electron volt, or may be written in meter square per Weber. So the total magnetic moment of odd even and even odd nuclei is due to only the unpaired single nucleon. Unpaired, which means if there are 6 number of protons and 7 number of neutrons, only a single neutron will be left, which does not pair with the proton. So the odd even or even odd nuclei have a magnetic dipole moment only, and due to only the unpaired single nucleon which is present left. So that's why they have a magnetic dipole moment. So this is all about the today's lecture. We will discuss about the next in our next lecture.